Hi everybody, thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Llewellyn. I run the services at medcomsnetworking.com and the associated websites. So you'll find information, resources, services, activities for the global medcoms community, by which I mean people who work in and around medical communications, medical education, medical publishing, and importantly, people who want to join our business. You'll find lots of information if you are interested in a job in medcoms at firstmedcomsjob.com. So we're doing lots of these webinars at the moment, which are giving us an opportunity to involve lots of people from across the globe, actually, talking about lots of topics. You'll find all the webinars are then recorded and posted at NetworkPharma TV, where you'll now find 350 odd videos of various sorts. So there's lots of really great content if you're interested in the business, but also obviously for people within the business, learning about different roles and talking about the different ways in which we work. So the more you all join in, the better, is my point of view. And I'm always looking for volunteers, so do give us a shout if you're interested in coming up and being part of the panel. Today, absolutely delighted to have the guys from Envision, and we're going to talk specifically about working as a publications professional. Pitched, I guess, a little bit more of the wannabes, but basically anybody who's interested in the publication side of the business. We publish a series of career guides every year, one of which is working as a publications professional, and Envision have sponsored it the last couple of years, so thank you very much. Written by John Gonzalez. It's available at firstmedcomsjob.com anytime anybody wants it. But the great thing is when we publish one of those career guides, we then bring some of the people involved online and we talk about that part of the business. So huge thank you to you guys for joining us today to talk about working in this area. I'm going to hand over to Simon for to kick off a short presentation. So over to you, Simon.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, I'm delighted to be here today. Talking about publication management and working in medcoms, and I'm delighted to be joined by some of my colleagues from Envision Pharma Group. So we've got Juliet West, Senior Editor, Catherine Gray, who's Division Head for Allegiant Europe, part of the Envision Pharma Group, Kate Stafford, Creative Lead, and then myself, Simon Stones, I'm one of the medical writers as part of the team.
Thank you, Simon. So this is just a little slide to tell you a little bit about our company. So the overall parent company is Envision Pharma Group, and within that we have a number of different divisions and companies, some of which have been acquired and some have been created over the 20 years since Envision was founded. And there you can see some of the divisions that we work for. So myself, I'm within Allegiant Europe, which is on the left-hand side, and these are the separate divisions that make up the whole group, the parent company. So we present ourselves often to our clients as one of these brands. Next slide, please. So on this slide, we've got some of the clients that we work with, and also some of the information about the company. We've got 20 offices around the world. We operate on 4 different continents, and we've got over 1,100 employees currently. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Juliet. So welcome everybody. This slide is really just to show you, I know I saw a few of you say you're here looking at new jobs, as Peter said. So this is just to show you the kind of roles that exist within a team that works on publication management and medical communications. There are usually 2 main arms to enter the business and how we structure a team. That's our scientific side. So those are the guys that develop the scientific content. And Simon is a medical writer within one of those teams. We also have the account management side, which is the route that I took and came in. And you work in terms of project management of the tasks that we're delivering, support with the clients, and just making sure that every project that we're doing, whether it's a publication or a meeting, is delivered on time and also on budget. We also have other entries within this business, which here is described as our support team, but I'm not sure I like that terminology. I think very much we operate as a huge collaborative team, and that's the creative and our digital and our editorial team. So Juliet is here representing the editorial perspective, and then we also have Kate from our creative perspective as well. So as you can see, there's a huge number of people that go into supporting our clients and making sure that we deliver best in class in terms of publication management. So next slide, please, Simon. I've been in the industry for about 18 years now, and I've had the real pleasure of working at a number of the really big MedComms agencies. So I've worked at Ashfield and Nucleus and been with Envision for the last 5 years. And I have to say that all of these companies are brilliant. I think at any one of these companies and across the board, it's a fantastic career and a fantastic way to kind of work as a team and develop any passion or interest you will have in medicine and science. Many of the companies will have the same features, which I think are so important to job satisfaction. So especially since the pandemic, the work-life balance has been hugely important across the board, not just at Envision, but I know in the industry as a whole, that ability to work both remotely and in the office and fit things in around whether it's childcare or walking your dog or hours of country differences. For me personally, having worked at Envision, some of the things that really stand out is the team spirit. We have an incredibly dynamic team and I'm proud every day to work with all of them. We also have quite a unique benefits package. So we're all shareholders in our business, which makes some of those days when it's a little bit difficult to get out of bed a little bit easier, if I'm honest. So that's a really unique feature. And we also just really invest in our teams. So there's no such thing as, we can't. We move people if they have a new passion that they want to pursue. As Juliet showed, we've got a wide range of roles and companies, and we really look to make sure that we retain talent rather than losing them. I think those are the main differences for me. If you just go to the next slide. As we go through, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of our panelists or Peter on LinkedIn. And if you're particularly interested in understanding any more about Envision and what we do, then the details are available here as well. So I think we've just done our short introduction. I hope that's okay, Peter, to give a flavour of what we do. And now we can move to the Q&A, if that's okay.
Excellent, thanks. No, that's great. I think it's just useful and indeed important just to paint that picture of Envision, the company, so that people know where you're working, sort of thing. But the point of today is to talk about the pub's business and your roles within it. What I thought we'd do to begin with is just get each of you to talk a little bit about your entry into your journey into where you are now, sort of thing. And Catherine, you talked a little bit about your journey, but can I just pin you down a little bit more in terms of the transition into pubs, basically. Just give us a little bit of a flavour of because your background, I suspect, is rather wider than pubs. You're focused more on pubs now. Yes? Yeah. And if that's true, just give us a sense of that transition, yeah?
So in terms of the transition, I've all of my MedComms existence worked in publication management. I now oversee a division where we have both publications and medical communications. I guess my route into the industry is not always classical from an account management perspective. So I actually worked in academia before. So my publication experience starts with developing my own PhD congresses and abstracts and manuscripts. And then, so it was quite a natural transition for me to then start working in medical communications. So I worked on that right from an account exec, where you're developing the timelines and the budgets for a publication, right up to now where we're overseeing large accounts and looking to grow our business or strategically partner with clients on the products that they're working on.
Okay. That's and maybe it's worth just saying, because yeah, I think it's worth saying. Envision has a sort of a reputation as being very, very pubs focused, and that was the business a while ago, wasn't it? But you're now much more general.
Oh yeah, so I think we were set up originally with our technology arm as well to very much focus on the publications, but we now expanded, and medical affairs strategy is very much a part of what we do as well, and at the heart of what we deliver. Along with a number of other acquisitions that we won't go into today, because I don't think they're necessarily as relevant for publication management.
Okay, no, that's fine. And just while you've sort of mentioned it, but let's just mention it rather than get bogged down in it. But just talk about the data vision side of things, the technology side of things. Just mention, because people will hear the data vision thrown around.
Yeah, so I'm sure many of people who are on the call who have works in medical communications or who work in publication management are very familiar with data vision. It's a tool that was introduced that allows our pharma partners to track the review and management of all the publications that they're developing. It really has helped compliance, and it allows you to interact with the authors and also your own internal team to make sure that you're on track and you're compliantly following the rules that are in place. It's now part of an Envision platform, and I don't have as much information to go into that, but it's certainly it's grown just as the industry has grown to really meet the needs of the business as things have changed.
Excellent. Okay, now I just think it's worth mentioning it, and people can go off and Google it or spend some more time looking at that separately, but let's at least cover it off. I'm going to go around in alphabetical order. Kate, you're next, as it were, and you're perhaps a little bit different from the sorts of people I usually get on these webinars talking about things like publication. So just tell us a little bit about your position and your sort of background, how you got in and the sort of work you do.
So I'm one of the creative leads at Envision, and I've been working in MedComms now for probably about 8 years, but I originally started working in a digital marketing agency where I was kind of focused on creating infographics to be shared online kind of thing, and then moved into a kind of data visualization role within Ashfield, and I've just kind of remained in MedComms since. I do find it very interesting, I guess, from a creative standpoint to work on the scientific stuff and kind of have that, overall kind of helping people thing. And I did do a university course, but saying that, I don't think you would have to get into a creative role within MedComms. But yeah, that was beneficial.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it's important to try and make that point that there's a wide team involved in this work, and we tend to focus on writers and account staff and then editors. It's important to talk about that wider team, and it's great to have you on, so thank you very much. And what you were talking about there was data visualization, and that's an important sort of that's an important phrase that sort of everyone talks about now, and translating into publications. So in publications terms, what are you doing? It's like literally the figures within a publication, but also presumably poster type work at the conferences and so on. You'd come for that.
Yeah, definitely. And I've definitely noticed a big push for more creative ways of dealing with publications and also developing different things. So we've been doing patient lay summaries and things like that, where we're kind of establishing new things, I guess, within that realm. Right. As well as, like you say, scientific posters, where again with the whole digital thing, due to COVID, people are looking for more different ways to do posters as well. So completely interactive, completely digital, and looking for ideas in that space. So that's really exciting from a creative standpoint to be able to kind of help shape how that looks in the future, because I think it will go more towards digital first, I guess. Print second, but yeah, it seems like it's kind of growing in the publication space. I think originally there wasn't much kind of creative scope, but these days it's just becoming more and more and more.
Exactly. And again, it's an important message to get out there, because you can think publications and just think, black on white text on a page type, academic publication, and that's still a big part of the business, I guess. But the over the last few years, there's been much more interest in more creatively presenting that data. The journals and publishers have got more interested in allowing putting platforms in place that allow presentation of that and enhancements to the publications and so on. But also, and I know this is very close to the Envision heart, as it were, the sort of the patient experience and I was going to say the wider accessibility to content.
Yeah.
Which is what it's really about. But I know you have a particular interest in patients and that whole sort of making things more accessible to patients at the end of the spectrum. Helps a lot by creatively presenting data rather than just writing out stuff, sort of thing. So I think it's been an interesting few years, and we've got a long way to go on that. I'm going to jump to, who am I jumping to next? Simon, I guess. Alphabetically, I'm talking, sorry. And you are the writer, which everyone just, pubs. Okay, so we've got writers involved. Okay, so you're the main man then. Okay, so what's your role? How did you get into the business, and do you see yourself as that main man? Or again, I'm sort of trying to emphasize this team approach, but you're the writer, so talk us a bit about from your point of view.
Yeah, definitely not the main man, because I think as part of working as part of Envision, it's such a team effort, and especially editorial and creative, they just bring our ideas to life. We present them with all this information, and then they make it look amazing. So I'm very much part of the team, and I think that's what I particularly love about Envision. My route into this role is again slightly unique. So academic wise, I did a biomedical science degree, worked as part of that in an agency more in strategic consultancy. Moved to do a PhD in applied health research. So I've come from got a bit of qualitative background as well as the science undergraduate degree. But I also do a lot of patient advocacy work, and so what really drew me to Envision was the Envision the Patient team, which we've got a whole dedicated team supporting patient side, and I was actually one of the patient reviewers with that team, and that's how I got to know the business. And then towards the end of the PhD, I only started the role earlier this year. MedComms felt like the right fit, to combine the science, bringing science to life, and particularly with Envision, the whole focus on, making research accessible to patients, and not just patients, but more accessible to, time-constrained health professionals, non-specialists, and the wider public. So I came into Engage, one of the divisions, in February as an associate medical writer, again working on publications in oncology, and I've then been promoted in October to medical writer. So again, really like the feel that Envision provide that support to to encourage you to grow as an individual. And working in publications, again, it's not just manuscripts and abstracts, which you tend to think of in this role, but I've had the opportunity to work on advisory boards, podcasts, which are again, looking at more extended publications and more creative ways of communicating research. So there's been a whole variety of different projects to work on. And I think that's what, every day is so different, and that's what I absolutely love. Working with our team, with clients, with authors, and patients, it's just every day is exciting, and you never know what's going to come, and I think that's part of the appeal of what why I like to work in this role.
Excellent. I'm going to do what I hate doing and just check that you can all hear me, because there's something going wrong with my technology at this end. Okay, right. Thank you. I'm okay. So skip over that. Juliet, you're on the editorial side, so let's talk a bit about that side of it and what your journey's in.
Yeah. So my journey was via a languages degree, and then into educational publishing. And then it was only really on relocating to the northwest of the UK that I discovered MedComms as an industry. It wasn't something that I was really aware of before that. And so my route in was via freelance. I did some freelance editing work for a number of agencies, and then heard about the role that I'm currently in with Envision, and it was a revelation. It was great to find a role that was, a challenging, interesting job with a wonderful group of people. You feel like you're constantly learning and contributing, and I just feel that with the group that I work with, I do feel appreciated. I know that I can ask what might seem like a stupid question. It's never that it's a stupid question. It's, questions are encouraged, and that's sort of how we all learn. And also, conversely, I can share my knowledge and experience with the rest of the team. They might ask me, a grammatical question or a style question, and that sort of, there's that mutual respect, and everyone helps each other. So it's been a great journey so far.
Excellent. And I'm going to say something slightly flippant, but I think there's a serious message in it. I mean, years and years ago, when I joined MedComms, and it was like, there were writers, there were editors, there were departments of editors checking all the work. And then we went through a bit of a phase where the editors seemed to sort of disappear and writers check each other's work and whatever. And I think generally you can see it on in various places like the news sites and things where the editors have sort of somehow disappeared. I mean, this is a business where attention to detail is hugely important, and we all believe we have attention to detail. Fresh eyes are always important, but specialist fresh eyes are very important in getting this stuff right. And so I'm being slightly flippant about it, but I think the role of the editor is hugely important, and has seen a bit of a resurgence in recent years. Do you sort of agree with that?
I do, yes. And I think that as Simon was saying before, we work on so many different types of materials, and we have so many different end users in mind that part of the process, I think, for the writers and the client team is really refining who is this for, how is it going to be used, and then the editor can often do a little bit of a check of, have you thought about this? Is this end user really going to understand this content, or can we clarify it or simplify it? And I think that is where we sort of add value to the process.
Excellent. Okay, and just as a quick summation as well, but with an eye on the entry level type people, the wannabes, as it were, all 4 routes are entry routes, aren't they? You can come in as an editor on the creative side, obviously as a writer on the account management side. So there are, and in a company like Envision, you can come in through any of those routes. Yeah?
Definitely, yes.
We have really great, I think, kind of grow your own approach in all of these routes in. So you could come in at entry level in any of the 4 ways we've entered. And I think we are always really looking at the experience someone's brings. So it's not going to be always about the academic qualifications. It's about what you've done, what you've experienced, you've built in the past, and whether you can bring something to the team and the culture.
Okay, cool. Okay, look, that great introduction, and we've already covered, I think we already painted a picture of how wide a variety of activity we're talking about and the different roles and so on. Just a quick plug to the audience. I know you're out there, guys, but we want your questions, observations and comments. So use the text boxes. You've got a chat box and a Q&A box if you'd like to contribute comments and ask some questions, and we can weave that into the conversation, please. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm going to pass to who's better, Catherine. I'm going to ask you, talk a little bit, if you can, about how the pub's business has changed for the last few years. I'll try not to put words in your mouth. Let's see where you go with this one. How has it changed in the last few years?
No, well, I think in the last few years, so I have to think about this not in terms of 18 years. I mean, I think in 18 years, it's changed a huge amount, right, in terms of the compliance shift and the need to be as absolutely transparent as possible. I think the way that many of the pharma companies initially reacted to that change was to become very cautious about anything other than primary or secondary manuscripts and Congress presentations. They're now, I think, becoming a little bit more confident again in doing things like review articles, which is not necessarily driven exactly by trial data. So that was one of the main changes. And then I think to Kate's point, it was already starting to see an evolution in terms of the digital landscape for publications, but the last 18 months have just made that explode. And I think it's kind of forced the hand of what was already going to happen. So I think the way we're going to start digesting, especially Congress presentations, but also publications, has changed massively. Most journals now offer video overlays or infographic abstracts, and people look at things like Congress presentations on their phone. They're not going to be sitting necessarily in an audience or on a laptop. So smart posters are, concise chunks, so people can just scan through and look at things, and also have that experience of the presenter with them on their shoulder, whether it's a podcast audio accompanying it or a video. I think just make it about being easy to digest for the end user. Oh, yeah. Sorry. And the other main difference, which Simon touched on, and I think Simon is best placed to talk to that, is the plain language summary piece is a huge evolution that we've been spearheading. And I just think that's an amazing step forward to ensure that people who ultimately are impacted by the diseases that we're all working on are going to be able to actually access and understand what these pharma companies are doing, because at the end of the day, it's all about improving lives for the patients.
Okay, no, that's great. And in the last 18 months has been dramatic, hasn't it? Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
In terms of the explosion in amount of work, but also the type of work and the different sorts of work that's now being asked of you, which is fascinating. Okay, those are leading to Simon there. Just let's talk a little bit about the patient side specifically. Then, just tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing with that, Simon.
Yeah, so we have got a dedicated team called Envision the Patient, and they really sit across the whole business and support all the different divisions. And we've really been spearheading quite a lot of work around plain language summaries of publications. So that whether that be conference abstracts and posters, and manuscripts as well. And as part of that, we've got a team of patient reviewers who, we really embed the patient as part of that journey. So, our writers and our account team and editors and creative work on these plain language summaries. We then have patient reviewers actually reviewing them and giving us feedback. And as I've done both sides of that. So been reviewing other writers' work and now as a writer, working on that. And it's a great dynamic to be able to accept that feedback and to work together on that. But also looking at, patients as authors of manuscripts, conference abstracts, where, trying to bring patients as part of that team. We often see that tokenistic, let's bring in the patient. But actually what we're doing is bringing patients in right from the very start, working with clients to prioritise areas of concern and working with patients really as partners through the whole process. So we've got quite a lot of work which our team has worked on. There's a whole training series we've done with WeCan, the cancer advocacy organisation, where we've got a training programme aimed at patients, but also other non-specialists to help them become more familiar with, patient authorship publications. And we've got the toolkit as well, looking at plain language summaries and a whole work of work which you can look at on the website. But really that this change in focus from patients, just being the side focus to actually becoming part of the team, and that's very much how I view. Like we've got members on on the call today. Patients and caregivers are part of that team as well, and we need to do more to embed them. And I think the agency is the best place to do that. To work with clients to bring patients into everything that we do.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair to say it's an early stage still, isn't it? I mean, when you're touching on things like patient authors and so on, it's still very early days for this, isn't it?
It is, and there's a growing body of work which is happening in this area. But again, it's just that changing focus of bringing a new member of the team in earlier on. But there's lots of work happening. So I think in the next few years we're really going to see this sort of exponential increase in things done and it done compliantly as well, which is really important for our industry.
Okay, I'm going to, Simon, just stick with you for a moment. And you mentioned compliance. Let's just follow this line of thought for a minute. So talk a little bit about the regulations, the guidelines, the compliance aspect of pubs work.
Yeah, so when we all follow, all our clients have different, SOPs which we follow, but there really is, some very clear industry guidance. So we've got the ICMJ authorship criteria, and again, that's really important when we're thinking of patients as authors to be contributing to work. Really again from moving away from this tokenistic approach to actually embedding them in the design, the development, the conduct, and then the dissemination of the research. And then we also have things like GPP3, GPP4, which is due to be published soon. Really that good publication practice of what we should be doing to make sure that people qualify for authorship, but also do things in a compliant and transparent manner. And again, for new writers coming into the business, this is, all this information is, is freely available, and it's a really good way to get yourself familiar with, the guidelines that we follow as writers, and as an industry as a whole, to make sure that our publications are delivered to the best quality that they can be. And are done compliantly and transparently, which is, I think, one of the big changes which the industry has seen in the last, decade or so, of how we, deliver publications and MedComms projects more broadly.
If we were just to throw a few signposts out to people, I'm thinking particularly the people coming into the business or want to come into the business. You've mentioned things like ICMG, you've mentioned GPP3/4 when it comes out. Equator, I would have thought would be somewhere that's worth pointing people at, just to try and give people a flavour of the sorts of guidelines and regulations and so on. Have you got any other? And we can mention people like ISMAP, the International Society of Medical Publishing Professionals, ISMAP, EMWA, the European Medical Rights Association, AMWA, the American Medical Rights Association. I'm just trying to throw a few signposts to people just to sort of like point them in directions. Is there anything else that you would throw into the mix there?
I'm just looking at a list of different ones, but I think ISMAP is again another really good organisation to look at. And again, the reporting guidelines on Equator are really useful to look at. So they're some key ones, I would say. Okay.
We've got a couple of. Can you repeat the acronym Sam's saying? acronyms. Okay, so ISMAP is the International Society of Medical Publishing Professionals. EMWA, European Medical Rights Association, AMWA, American Medical Rights Association, or there's also an Australian. What else we've got? Equator. I don't actually know what Equator stands for, do you?
It's enhancing the quality and transparency of health research.
Excellent, thank you very much. GPP 3 and 4, go on, good. Keep going, Simon, and finish off the acronyms.
Yeah, good publication practice. And ICMJE is International Committee of Medical Journal Editors.
Right, that's enough acronyms. All right, well, good point, Sam. We shouldn't be throwing these acronyms around, but so thanks for picking us up on that one. Okay, a little bit of chat coming in here about the qualifications and so on to get into pubs. Let's focus on that side of it. And Juliet, let's start with you because the question came in quite early on in terms of, you know, on the editorial side, the sort of qualifications. I'm now just trying to find it again, but it was about what background do they have to have, the science or language degrees and so on. Just talk a little bit and generally about the sort of qualifications that somebody might need.
Yes, so we don't necessarily need people to have a science background, although we do have editors that do have a science background. I've got a colleague who started as a medical writer and then decided to become an editor. So we are open to that, but it's not required. What I probably would advise would be either an editing qualification, which you can do as a postgraduate, which is what I did, or there are various training courses. There is a Chartered Institute of Editorial Professionals run courses. There are a few independent training courses. There's a publishing organization, not necessarily focused on scientific editing, but within a graduate course, you will probably do at least some scientific editing, as it is seen as a discrete part of editing with its own challenges and rewards, shall we say. So that's probably what I would recommend, and any form of volunteering or sort of extracurricular work that you've done in a sort of editorial capacity, whether that's proofreading or helping with a student paper or anything like that, would also go towards your application and be viewed favourably.
Okay, Kate, I'm going to bring you in on the creative side. I think you did touch on this actually, but just again, talk a little bit maybe about the sort of people you're looking for to come into this side of the business.
So as I say, from the way that my journey was that I did do a kind of design visual communication course initially, but I know many people within the creative team that don't have necessarily a design education background, and it could just be that they've fallen into the role somehow and then have developed themselves a portfolio. And I think as long as you can, you know, prove that you can do the work to some degree, so you have some body of work to show, then you would be able to get a role within the creative, if that makes sense. Just being able to demonstrate that you can do it.
I mean, one of the things, I mean, both Julia and Kate, I suppose from your sides, but generally speaking, there are no magic courses that you can take. There's like editorial editing in MedComms sort of thing, or creating in MedComms sort of thing. Okay, and that will apply also to, I mean, I'm coming back to Simon on the writing side, because I think someone's asked the question, and there's always questions about, you know, do we need PhDs and postdoc experience, and again, what sort of experience do we need? Anything you want to add on? Oh, sorry, Juliet.
Sorry, I was going to say, we also normally, if someone is looking to interview, a test will form part of that recruitment process. So there is an opportunity to prove what you can do rather than just what your CV says.
Yeah. Okay, I was going to come on to that in a second. Let's just sorry, I'm following my train of thought at the moment. Sorry, Simon, just cover off the qualifications to come in as a writer.
Yeah, so PhD is not a requirement. Again, a lot of our writers do have PhDs, but it is not a requirement. Again, it's more looking at your skill set. So, you know, have you got any experience in publications, in communicating science, and, you know, science communication more broadly is increasing, I think, in academia as well. So it's very much what skills can you bring, and looking at all those other things which may be outside of the traditional spectrum of, you know, scientific background. So again, you know, companies like Envision really don't just focus on that, but it is a matter of fact that a lot of the writers do have PhDs, but it's certainly not a requirement.
Okay, and that would be a fair comment across MedComms actually, although I think we have to recognise the fact that PhD and indeed postdoc experience can be very useful in what is a very competitive marketplace. But many agencies now will say it's not important. What they're looking for is the person. But the truth is a lot of people do come in with a PhDs or at least postgraduate qualifications. There's a question here. Sorry, I'm losing track of the question slightly, but there was a question coming in about English language. Let's just stick with the writing side of it at the moment. I mean, have you got a view on that? You know, do they have to be native English speaker?
No, I mean, we've got teams across the world who are working in different areas. So again, it's capitalising on expertise. I mean, command of the English language, most of our publications are English language. So, you know, to have an ability of that is certainly good. But you know, we've got teams working in Asia Pacific regions, and you know, being able to have, you know, being able to speak or write more than one language is certainly a benefit. I know I would struggle, but you know, that it really can be beneficial to different teams.
Yeah, okay. And just to cover off a point that again has come in and will come in the webinar like this, and I know, but actually just nod at me if I'm saying the right thing, or correct me if I'm not saying the right thing. But a company like Envision will say you're taking on people. You've got something like 20 offices around the world. You know, you're taking people on around the world, but you can't, like, you know, and you're flexibly working so on. But in the UK, you can't take somebody on in Singapore or something because of the legal and tax sort of reasons and so on. You need a sort of legal entity in the country where they are, sort of thing. Yeah. So this idea of we're all now working flexibly, we can work anywhere in the world, doesn't actually work in practice. Companies like Envision will say you need to have your legal and tax entity. Is that right, Catherine? Sorry.
Yes, but we don't just have offices in the UK. So we have offices in the US. So obviously, if you were US based, you could still work within our company. And similarly, we have offices, to Simon's point, in Asia. So if you were based in Asia, you could work with that part of business under that entity. So there is certainly ways that can be considered. We also have quite a large presence in Serbia because of our technology piece. And I know that we have some writers who are also aligned with those offices. So there is scope for...
So we're agreeing. That was the point I was making, that you need that legal entity somewhere to to take somewhere up. And somewhere like Singapore just happens to be my example because you haven't got an office in Singapore. Okay, so
I think some companies,
I don't want to get bogged down in this. But.
Yeah, some medcom companies do though, actually. So just, I know we're talking about Envision here, but the chances are, based on the location of so many different companies now in this industry, that you should look who is based within your particular country or region, and there may well be somebody.
Yeah. Okay, let's not go too far down there because we'll get caught up in employment law and tax reasons and all the rest of it. So, but it is becoming very flexible, the way of working. Someone's asking about remote working as an entry level writer. Let's assume, because it's not clear from there, let's assume that's someone based in the UK. Are you taking on people now remotely at an entry level? Catherine, just talk from a general point of view.
Because of the pandemic, we've had to completely change our approach to this because we couldn't put a stop on recruitment. And many divisions were already doing that. But certainly from the division I'm involved in, we have really successfully onboarded 3 to 4 associate medical writers remotely, and will continue to do so. I don't think that it's a barrier. I think there's always value in bringing people together, whether it's for a big training day or for team meetings monthly. So we'd always look for some flexibility to be able to be involved in those face-to-face discussions. But certainly somebody who is looking to be working remotely for a large part of the time as an associate medical writer, that's not a barrier, no. And the same goes for all of the other roles, so the account management roles as well. Could I just talk, you didn't ask about the account management entry levels and the background to that.
Sorry, I missed that, sorry, yeah.
No, it's okay. I just think because it's quite unique compared to the other departments. So we have a really broad background of people who join account management. So you have got people like myself who have got a scientific background, but it's absolutely not essential. And in fact, I think the best project management teams have people who have a variety of backgrounds. So we have some people with IT backgrounds, some people with marketing backgrounds, some people who've got degrees in history. It's incredibly varied, but I think what it allows for is to have that different way of thinking about things, which in our industry is so important. But I guess at the heart of it is people's ability to multitask, be great communicators, and just be open to every day being a little bit different. But that goes for all of our job roles.
Yeah, okay. I just want to cover a couple of quick questions here. Sally was asking about, do you work solely for clients in industry or also with public sector clients? I mean, I would say generally within MedComms, we're working primarily for pharma, stroke biotech, stroke devices, whatever. But have you got anything that you'd add to that for Sally?
I think
in terms of working with the public bodies and so on, that's a little bit different, yeah.
So the Envision the Patient team has done lots of work with some of the more broad organisations. As Simon said, they've worked a lot with ISMAP and they've worked a lot with WeCan, and we've also done across the industry some pro bono work with some charities as well, which I think has been really nice to use the skills of Kate. So, for example, working that creative piece into, again, patients so that they can, children, for example, have a way of describing their disease. So, yes, we do. There is opportunity, although it's not as common to work with companies that aren't pharma companies.
Yeah. Okay. Let's. Linda's come in with a specific question for Simon, but again, it will be sort of like appropriate to all of you in terms of we're focusing on the sort of entry level now. So, in terms of training, you've said, Catherine, you've said it's quite flexible now, which in itself is an interesting point. But from a training point of view, what sort of support are you given? Let's just run through this very quickly. But Simon, the question was aimed at you. So, what sort of support do you get when you first come in? You can still remember that from a few months ago.
Yeah. And I started remotely as well, so again, it was all new. But we have a dedicated program called Envision Advance, which is a program for our associate medical writers new to the business, and that really covers all the basics of things across publications on MedComms. So again, that's a really comprehensive blended learning approach with online learning and some sort of Zoom-based sessions. But again, there's the way that the learning is provided. We've got learning constantly happening. So we've got our own dedicated platform of a variety of different courses, which we can go through at our own pace, and also some face-to-face or virtual at the moment. But also that the mentorship, I think, is really important. So, everyone has their line manager, and my line manager has been really key to my development during the first few months. But again, the whole wider team, so medical writers further down the field, again, learning from the account management side, the editors, creative, the way that our teams work and many agencies will work, that approach is you learn as you go along. And, I think just that, holding your hands up, making mistakes, everyone's really supportive of, helping you to learn. So, I think both, the formal training, but also that informal, networking, mentorship is really important and something which I've certainly valued over the last few months.
Okay, cool. And to be honest, you're all going to say the same thing, aren't you? That was a very good overview of the general training program. So maybe we should stop there. I mean, and a very positive one. So, and I have got an eye on the time, and we are slightly over as always. So, what I'm going to do on that positive note is draw this part of the session, the recording part of the session, to a halt, if I may. I know I can speak for all of you that you're all very happy for people to contact you via LinkedIn, and you'll reach out and so on. You've given your web address; people can come in to have a look at the website and so on. But I would encourage people, part of what I'm trying to do with these webinars is encourage people to talk to each other. So people in the audience, or if they're watching the video, reach out to you on LinkedIn and make some direct contact. I know you're all very happy to hear from them, yeah? Okay, so on that note, I'm going to say thanks everyone for joining me today. And if you're interested in what we're doing, medcomsnetworking.com is the place to go. I'm always happy to hear from anybody. We've got hundreds of videos like this on NetworkPharma TV. And if you are interested in joining the industry, specifically the MedComms business, then hopefully you'll find lots of useful information at firstmedcomsjob.com. So that's my little plug. But thank you very much. Everybody, if you can give us a little wave, we'll say goodbye. But members of the audience, you can stick around because we're here for a few minutes. Yeah, bye-bye.